Unity of Houston is an inclusive church where we seek to understand and live the teachings of Jesus and other spiritual masters. At Unity, we welcome all people from all spiritual paths and every walk of life. We celebrate the diversity of our city and of our world, and we teach love, tolerance, and oneness, seeking to live in harmony with open minds and open hearts.
Wherever you are in your spiritual path, you are always welcome at Unity. Join us and discover that the life of your dreams is already within you.
Tonight, I'm sure you're wondering, why is there paper all over the seats tonight? Because I am tonight speaking on the care and feeding of relationships. And as I was planning it this morning, I had such a list of things I wanted to talk about and no discipline to cut them down to something that would fit in a talk. So instead, you're getting about everything I think I know about relationships on a piece of paper. So I don't know if that's pathetic or if it's prophetic. I'm not sure. I'm going to leave that up to you, somewhere in between probably. You can follow along, you can leave it, you can write notes on it, it's for you, and you can ignore it if you'd like. It will not hurt my feelings. I just didn't want to leave you out in the dark. So the care and feeding of relationships. First, a disclaimer. I am not a relationship expert, but I have learned a lot, and I'm just bursting at the seams to tell you some of it. My family has plenty of complaints about me, for sure. So I just want you to know I am not a perfect partner, parent, or sibling. I did not ascend. And I don't have to be. And neither do you. And that's what I want you to know, is that we're all messy humans. We've all got raw edges sticking out. We've got shadow stuff we may never get a good glimpse of, that other people can see well. So there's nothing here about doing it so right and perfect, or that we're ashamed if we're not. This is really a great experiment and a great learning, and we really need each other. And just like the song that Siobhan shared with us that we know, Lean on Me, it's really an opportunity for us to learn together. And so what I want to start off with is the messy idea of codependency. And I have done a lot of therapy in that, and I have come to some really hard-won truths and understandings about how it works. And I am simply sharing from my own experience what has worked for me. This is not the answer for everybody, but I have found some fundamental things that really save my bacon and help me remember how I can restore myself to peace. And I think it's worthy to share. So the first thing about codependency, the antidote to codependency for me has become an ability to respect the other. Because codependency, by its definition, assumes that I know more than you do. And that if I'm worried about you, that it's really not my love that's motivating me. Love is mixed in there somehow, but that's not really it. When I start to tinker in your life, it's really because I have some sort of need of my own to fix you or to make your life work, so I'm going to feel better about mine. And so I have learned that if I pay attention to me, it's amazing what happens to you. So, antidote to codependency is respect. The first thing I do want to say about that, though, is that almost nothing I say tonight about relationships includes abusive relationship. Therefore, I'm going to talk about that right off the top, so we eliminate that from the conversation. First, a bright line on abusive relationships that are in your life. If you're in fear, if you have been hurt physically, emotionally, if you're wounded and you keep going back to the same person or they're still in your life, I want you to know that, run, do not walk to the nearest third-party support that you can find to get yourself out of an abusive relationship. That is the number one thing, and that's the conversation. After that, and nothing else I say about abusive will apply to abusive relationships, because I am talking about being able to negotiate with people out of respect. But in abusive hurtful relationships, the only thing you can do is remove yourself from them and remove them from your household or whatever. So if you need more help with that, you can call the church office and we will have a counselor or a minister meet with you and help you figure that out. The next thing, and I'm not going to take questions on that. The next thing is stop waiting for people to change and unhook yourself and live. In other words, your good and your life does not depend on somebody else getting it, whether it's an adult child or a parent or a partner, a spouse, a friend, a sibling, anybody in your life that you're kind of waiting, hanging your happiness on, waiting for something to change for them so that your life can go on. That's a mistake. And that is not how relationships work. And that isn't really being motivated by love. Recognizing the power differentials as well in your relationships requires realigning your expectations of what you can and cannot receive from this relationship and from these people. And so as you take a look at the people in your life or a person in your life or a relationship that continues to thwart you or make you feel unhappy or whatever, take a look at whether or not this is really someone on the same level with you. Is there a power difference here? Do they have something over on you? Is it one up, one down? Do you have more? Is your life working better than theirs and you keep trying to save them? Is it somebody that you think you need so your life will come together? This is a power differential and it only breeds resentment. And so if this is the relationship that you're chasing or the one you're trying to save, this is a great opportunity for you to take a look at it and look somewhere else for somebody who is with you on the same train, a place for you to find a way in which you can share, and sometimes you're up and sometimes they're up. And that's a healthy balance. That's a healthy relationship. That's a way in which it can work. The most important thing I have learned about codependency is knowing where my power ends and someone else's starts. The easiest, the most important thing I have learned with my adult daughter who was in addiction was that I realized that I no longer had a responsibility, that I had taught her everything I knew, that I had given her everything I could, that she was of age, even if her life wasn't working the way I wanted it to, or even working maybe the way she did. But finally, at long last, I found that there was nothing else I could do. There wasn't any stone unturned. There wasn't anything left. And it wasn't that I loved her any less, but I was out of a bag of tricks. My bag of tricks was empty. And I was ready for some real peace. And so I managed, through the grace of God, to unhook myself from the roller coaster of her life. Yes, everything looks like it's getting better. It's getting better. I think she's really oh, no, it's falling apart again. Oh, whoa, 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 whoa. It looks like she's doing it. And I got tired of writing that with her. And I wasn't adding any benefit really to her. I believed in her, I loved her, but I had nothing else for her. I'd already told her everything. And I can guarantee you that my voice echoes in the back of her head on unwanted regularity. I am sure. I'm sure she knows what Mom would say. So I don't have to say it out loud to her anymore. I'm probably the only human being that doesn't need to give her any advice because I have already given it to her. And she knows what it is. And she's a very wise woman in a lot of ways. I very much know that about her. The cool thing is that what I have discovered is that not only when I unhook and I'm standing on the ground and watching the roller coaster, I have become an observer and not a participant. I have become a cheerleader for the good in her life, and I can authentically cheer her on when it looks like things are going great. And I don't have to give her advice, and I don't have to tell her the next step. When I was running her life, or at least trying to, I was always reaching over her shoulder. When something would work, I would say, great, that is so good. Now, the next thing you need to do is, and blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. And then I found myself like laboriously reaching over her shoulder, trying to move her along in her life. Can you imagine how much resentment she must have felt toward me? And how hard it was for me to keep that up, and how little peace of mind I was really having, because it was always a worry, always waiting for the phone call, always waiting for the next thing. It wasn't fair to either of us. And I was the one who needed to unhook, and so I did. And in doing that, the cool thing is that when I got off the roller coaster of my daughter's life, my life got better. And then hers did. Coincidence? I think not. All the time. It wasn't all up to me, but my part was. And sometimes what we find is that a codependency, it takes two to tango. And if at least one disengages, the other one is left without a dance partner. And either they can start to do their own thing, or they'll find another partner, but at least it won't be this one, right? So I want to support you in knowing that, that when you can discover what you can control, there is peace of mind in that. There is peace of mind in knowing where my power is and where it isn't. And in this moment and today, I have learned in all of my relationships, in my professional relationships, in my family life, in everything, the grace of God has been so good to me. I'm able to see now that when I am in distress or worry or fear, I can determine what can I affect and what I can't. And there is peace for me in that. It doesn't mean that I love them less or that I might worry a little bit less about them. What it does is it gives me peace of mind knowing that I believe in them. And I believe that whoever has the power has the guidance that goes with it. And if I don't have that, then I'm just able to be the cheerleader for them and to cheer them on when things work and they're successful, because all of their achievements now are theirs. And I'm not sharing in any of it. Do you see? There is a real, for me, a great relief. It's been a healing for me. It has been a restoration of peace. Peace is the most obvious and real experience of the divine. Peace comes of its own. You cannot think yourself into peace. You cannot decide peace. You can't make peace happen. Peace arises when you let go of everything unlike it. When you just fall back and let go, peace will arise from deep in the bed of your soul. And in that moment, everything around you may not be rosy and it may not look great, but in the moment, you're at peace and you are in divine guidance for yourself and for your own life. And you will know what's right for you and be able to do it because you will have that power to do it. That was a nutshell of codependency. That really should take a week, and I probably could take a week to talk to you about it. If you have questions about codependency in your life, it's probably the most difficult thing we will ever encounter in our lives. And it crops up for me too, of course, but I'm happy to support you in it. And as I said, we have spiritual counselors in the office, ministers available to work with you and help you work some of those questions out for yourself. I'm going to move on to another big topic, which is care and patience. This is where I think everyone at some time in your life, you will very likely become a caregiver for someone you love. Someone in your life will need you to be more hands-on in the care of their disease or the last stages of their life or some part of their life, maybe recovery from serious illness or surgery. There'll be some part of you that you'll be called into that, and because you love them, you'll be engaged. That happened to me with my mother, and I did not expect to be the one to be that. I'm the oldest of 5, and I really thought I was going to escape that because I had a sister, and she always said she would be the one to take care of my mother. And then she moved to Colorado. Thanks, honey, And my mother stayed in Texas. And so it fell to me to support her, even while I didn't give her the care that some people do, taking them into their homes and being the direct caregiver of daily tasks and that sort of thing. That was not my role and responsibility, but being the one that gets called 24/7 for anything from she needs a box of her special Kleenex to they found her on the floor not breathing and they're taking her to the ER. It could be anything in between, and it could happen at any time. And that kind of responsibility and that kind of care is very, very hard. It may very well be the hardest thing I've ever done, is to be involved in her care. If it hadn't been for my sweet husband, who is a nurse and two master's degrees in psychology and taking care of people, and his medical background along with what I have to offer, I could not have done it, I don't think. So my hat's off to him, William, for helping me do that, and he did some amazing things for my mother as well. In the care of my mother and watching her move through, I learned what patience really is. I didn't know what my level of patience would be like, but I can tell you, in working as the senior minister in New Braunfels of a small church, I was the only minister. And so around the corner from our church is where her nursing home was. And for the last 2 years, I think, or so, at least, wasn't she there 2 years, 2.5, 3 years, something like that. I'd be working late, I'd be finishing up whatever, and I needed to stop off and see Mom, so I'd stop off and see Mom. It was 7, 8 o'clock at night. I hadn't had dinner yet. I have a half-hour trip home, and I would stop in to see her, and I tell you, everything in me just wanted to run screaming down the hallway and just leave and go home and take care of myself. And my mom would talk about this little thing or this little ache on this part of her arm, and she would just talk about, Karen, what do you think this is? This some kind of, and I would look at it and I was literally, I don't know. It's right there. I don't know. Did you hurt yours? Did you fall? No. I would just my brain was just screaming, and I would just look at her, and I began to realize what it was she really wanted. She wanted my love, and she wanted me to touch her arm, and she wanted me to love her, and she wanted me to listen, and she just wanted me. And so what I did was I sat, and I took her hand, and I listened to her, and I watched myself hold her hand while my brain is screaming, and while every bit of me wanted to leave and felt no patience at all, I watched myself be patient with her when I couldn't feel it at all. And I realized that that's what it is. It's the moment that you realize that there is something greater in this relationship that needs to be honored than how I'm feeling or what I want or, what I need in this moment. In this moment, I am capable of giving her what she needs. And with a few more minutes, beyond my patience and beyond my own personal limit, she would withdraw at some point and she would say, "You haven't had your dinner yet. Why don't you go home and get some dinner and go see William?" And in that moment, my mother went from being needy and me needing to give to her, and she, for that moment, became my mom again and sent me home to take care of myself. And that was the gift I got by learning what patience could really do for me. Care and patience, nurturing the relationships of people we love. Prioritizing relationships over principles at all costs. This is a big one. It may be on your plate right now. I learned this painful lesson when I was at Unity of New Braunfels. Oh, I just remembered something I didn't complete about my mother. Okay, let me tell you this. My last birthday gift from her, this is so weird, you have to hear about it. My mother died in February 2017, and I really probably only cried for a few minutes because I had done so much grieving leading up to it and was so relieved when I didn't, when she passed and when she was relieved of all the suffering that I watched her go through. And I didn't, it was like there was just nothing but joy for me. There was nothing but relief. And my hair curled. Do you see this? I didn't have curly hair before. My mom said when I was little, I had curly hair, but all my life growing up, I permed it for 25 years. When I was here before, any pictures you see of me, I have hair that was permed. Every 3 months, I got my hair permed because I didn't believe I had any curls in it. And when my mom passed, my hair curled up. And I know she gave those to me. Thanks, Mom. And on my birthday in 2017, my birthday fell on a Tuesday, and I was getting ready to go to the office, and I was all by myself, and we had been cleaning our house and trying to prepare it to be shown so we could sell it, so we could move to Houston eventually. And this was on my birthday, and there was nobody in the house, and on the desk where my purse was, where I was grabbing it, there was a little business card that looked like face down. And we were supposed to, you know how it is, you're supposed to clean everything up and make it presentable. And I saw that there, and the first thing I went to was, "William, you can't even clean up the stuff from the desk in here." So I was like chastising him in my head. So I, was very virtuously picked up this card. I'm going to throw it away. And I turned it over, and it was a handwritten card from 1955 that was my birth announcement of my birth on June 20th, 1955. My weight, and had Art and Mildred Halavity, I'm Czech, written on it. This is a card that my mother had cut out, because this is what they did. She wrote it out. She would have put it into a birth announcement. She would have mailed it to family and friends somewhere. How in the world it ended up on my desk, face down, in the middle of nothing, after my mom had passed and we'd gotten rid of her things. And as I looked at it, all I could feel was both my parents looking down at me and just loving me on my birthday, and that's when I cried. I'm going to cry again, just thinking about it. I had to put makeup on again. It was so powerful. So my mother gave me a big birthday present back. I just needed to tell you that. Prioritizing relationships over principles at all costs. I'm sure you're very curious what that means. What that means is this. First, number one, the most important thing to consider before you go any further in what I'm about to tell you is this relationship someone you love, really love, and you want them in your life? If this is someone you love and really want in your life, and you have big differences of opinions about the world, about politics, about what you should do, what you shouldn't do, about religion, about any of the taboos that you're not supposed to talk about, but this is someone you love and you want in your life, I have discovered that being right is no benefit, really, at all, in these kinds of dealings. It doesn't matter how much data I can back it up. It doesn't matter how morally correct I think it is, how right I think I am. What matters is I care about this relationship, and I need to reverse my priorities from needing to convince and needing to be right, and instead find a way to love and to respect. Even opinions that I find disgusting, possibly, it is not the person that I find disgusting. It is that mindset and all that I believe that implies. You don't need to change your principles. I'm not suggesting that you do. You do not need to sell out. Only change your priorities. What kind of relationship do you want with this person? And accept them and try to understand their point of view, putting yourself in their place with their background, with where they live, with how they live, with who's in their life. What would you have to believe and feel about the world to believe the way they do? Undoubtedly, if you love this person, you know a lot about their history, and you know how they see the world. And if you were in that position, you're going to find in yourself that they may live in a great deal of fear or pain or resentment and anger because of things that have happened to them or should have happened to them and didn't, all kinds of ways in which you know their history and you know where they're probably living inside. And from that, you can find a way to feel compassion and understanding and respect for their choices. Respect that those are the choices they make and that you relinquish any need. Remember where your power ends. Where your power ends is in the choices you make about your life and what you believe in. But beyond that, you allow them the respect of making their own choices and learning their own lessons in the same way that you learn yours. The caveat for me is I personally draw the line at beliefs that depend on demeaning or objectifying other human beings. I don't want to talk about those. I do not traffic in that. I can ask my loved ones who I trust love me to respect my boundaries around this, and we won't have those conversations. You see? It works both ways. You don't have to do all the bending. You can ask for some space for yourself as well, because you trust that love is the connector, the bridge between you and them, and that they must value it too. When their priorities in their world don't match yours, simply imagine a scenario where you would share this priority too, and see it as they likely see it. Sometimes they see it simply as a pendulum that's swinging. It swung too far. Now it needs to come back. Where you think there's more progress to be made or more direction it needs to go or it's just getting better now, doesn't matter. They're not comfortable with everything. You can give them space to be where they are. Respect them as a person and continue to love them. Choose words that are filled with both respect and love. And if you have to change the subject, of course, do it. But what I'm trying to support you in knowing is that here's the deal, y'all. The world needs us to hang together. We need not let ourselves be divided by the forces out there that keep trying to polarize us and pull us further apart. to vilify each other, to condemn each other, to catastrophize what will happen if the other side gets its way, whatever side that is. Humanity needs open hearts and open minds to survive. No matter what happens this year, this decade, in this election or the next, we will never transcend needing one another. We need all of us. And I'm inviting you tonight to start with those people you love. The care and feeding of relationships. My goodness, this is our work, and it will transform your life if you do it. God bless you all.
Thank you for watching this message today. I'd like to invite you to join us in person here on campus at Unity of Houston for Sunday morning or Wednesday evening services. If you can't be with us here on our campus, you can still join us live on Facebook or on our website, unityhouston.org, Sunday mornings at 11 a.m. Central.